How many of you knew what a flat screen TV cost 8 years ago? Flat screen TV. Couple grand. What can you get it for today?
$300 or $400.
$300 or $400. So, if you take a look at virtually every single challenge in the private sector, competition, innovation has allowed us to reduce the cost of providing a service. In government, we haven't done that. Every program seems to always get a massive increase. We're spending more, and then when you look at the service levels, the actual number of people they're serving, or the impact of their services, we're getting less and less. So what we did with the roadmap to recovery is I decided to approach government from a different standpoint. I said, I don't want to look at what you're currently doing and how you're currently providing services. I want to think about how do we rebuild and redesign our service levels from the point of view of the consumer. So back to the cell phone. In 2003, I said, why do we have 21 separate customer service lines in the city of San Diego? If you want to report a water main break, you have to dial one number and get one computer system and one set of staff. If you want to report a fire, if you want to report a dead animal on the road, if you want to report graffiti, different phone numbers for different issues with their own computer systems and their own customer service staff. So I proposed in 2003 that we go to something called San Diego 311, where you dial 311 and you get a customer service line, one CRM solution, one set of staff, and you're given a ticket number, and we take care of everything in one service call. That was going to be a telephone number based on a landline model. 2003 is when I first proposed that. By 2009, 2010 actually, technology had leaped my own solution. And so I said, we're going to go to the San Diego 311 app. You download it on the smartphone. You take a picture of your problem, dead animal, pothole. By the way, dead animals is a big issue. Dead animal, pothole, graffiti, and you hit send. That's all you do. Now you can put additional information in, but all you need to do is take the picture and hit send in the app. Why? Because GPS told us down to the last foot where you were standing when the picture was taken and sent. By the way, you can actually open it up and you can see other problem reports in your community. You then can click on that to see what the status is, this thing was amazing. Off the shelf. Do you know how much I paid for the app? The entire software and back end? $9,000. Citywide. The city staff were furious. Do you know why? We did more cases using San Diego 311 in 6 months in one office, one council office, citywide, than the entire city council had handled in 3 years prior. And I didn't increase my staff. I had the smallest staff of any council member. 2 staff members managed the 311 system in addition to doing all sorts of other responsibilities. We handled more cases with better customer service. It brought city government closer to the people. And I was thinking I would have to put together a whole customer service desk for a couple $1 million. So the whole concept behind the roadmap to recovery is that we're not going to assume what we're doing today is what we should be doing tomorrow plus 10%. Our concept is, what does a customer need, and how do we build a service process to achieve that outcome? And that might mean that we're going to use technology. It might mean that we're going to get out of certain things. It might mean that we're going to partner with people. It might mean that we're going to train people in different techniques. Another great example that I love in government, foster care. Because I am a victim of foster care. Didn't work for me. The Jesuits stepped in and took care of me. I had a great opportunity there. But when I found out that in Florida, kids were being abused, but caseworkers were not going in and seeing those kids. They said, oh yeah, on the paperwork, I did it. I took care of it. I saw the kid, they were just fine. A couple, I think 2 kids actually died because of the abuse. How many of you remember reading this stuff? It was about 13, 14 years ago. So you know what the government bureaucrats' idea was? We are going to train all of our case managers. We are going to have better oversight. We're going to check in on them. We're going to have surprise visits to make sure they're there watching the kid. You know what Motorola did? They said, you know what? We're proposing that you go to a digital tablet where you can take a picture of the child, time and date stamp, and GPS. And by the way, instead of doing all the paper, you can do all of your case management in simultaneously. More efficient because it goes to digital, and more accountable because you can't really fake the fact that you took a picture of the child, time stamped, location stamped. So government, don't take your current structure and say, oh, something bad happened, let's hire more government folks and throw bodies, costs, money at a problem. Instead, let's rethink how we're providing the service. I bet you any money that if we took the top 5 challenges in this country, in veterans benefits, and we gave you a reward if you could figure out how to make the situation better, that you would do a far better job as college students than 40-year-old experts who've worked in government for 15 years. I guarantee you in the top 5 areas that would happen. More likely because you come with a complete, fresh set of eyes on the challenge. And because you're already using modern technology, you might think of different ways of solving the problem. So the roadmap to recovery was all about that thinking. And it wasn't my idea in every page. It was me going out to town halls, me talking to experts, people using the library, people using the park services, people going into development services trying to pull a permit and saying, hey, what's wrong? And do you have an idea on how to fix it? And that's how we came up with the roadmap. We just kept adding idea after idea after idea. If you start a conversation out saying, tell me how to solve this, you're going to get a lot of great ideas in this country. And a lot of them are going to come right here from San Diego. Yeah.
On behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you very much for coming and investing in PLNU students as you have done tonight. On the subject of federal programs to help students afford college, where do you stand on the Pell Grants and other programs to help students afford college?
I'm all of the above. If you empower students to choose the sorts of loans that they want to enroll in, then having more products out there is never a bad thing. But as it relates to the government programs, there's also a fiduciary responsibility that the government has to make sure that every dime that we spend is going to have the biggest impact. So I've been a big proponent of something called the Government Performance and Results Act. And what it requires is that every government program measure the performance and then benchmark against similar government programs. If you approach things that way, you'll find that $1 spent in this program might actually produce 80 cents of results compared to another program. You should never tolerate that. You should say, wait a minute, if there's a different outcome using a different program, let's invest there. Now, there may be a reason why a program exists because they deal with a specific niche in the market, which is fine. You continue to have a specialized program. But I think we need to, in student loans, invite all different sorts of programs, all different sorts of products in the marketplace, and yes, continue our government lending programs so that we can make as many options available to students to afford college. Yeah.
Sir, one more
Call me
question.
Carl, please.
Sorry. One question regarding government programs. As you very well know, there's a huge issue with various programs such as the Department of Veteran Affairs, a huge backlog of cases there. What would your plans be on helping reverse that problem?
When I announced for Congress, the VA backlog is actually what the example I used in terms of talking about my agenda for reforming government, transforming how we provide services. So as I was talking about earlier, the roadmap to recovery, about finding ways to make government work better. The VA benefit disaster that's occurring right now, where people have to wait 600 days in some cases. The horror stories where service members come back and they're waiting 600 days to get approvals on basic benefits that they've already earned, but that the VA has not recognized. We have a situation right now where the DoD computer system does not talk to the VA computer system. Yet they've had multi-million-dollar contractors trying to figure this out, plus legions of bureaucrats. If you gave this issue over to, I don't know, even Facebook or Google, they'd probably come up with a solution pretty darn quick. And so I want to see if we can create a way to transform the process and maybe try different ways out in different regions as to how to clean up the backlog, motivate our staff, do share-in savings, performance-based pay, all of the above, because the private sector has figured out how to do this. One last example, Lean Six Sigma. How many of you ever heard that term, Lean Six Sigma? All right, if you're taking a business class, you probably have come across it. It's business process reengineering, total quality management. Lean Six Sigma was pioneered by companies like FedEx. When you check the box for FedEx on a shipment to China, you say, I want to get there in 3 days. And you check another box that says, I'm going to get it there in 5 days. Pricing is different, right? Pricing is usually different for those two checks. Do you expect that half the boxes get there in 3 days and the other half get there in 5 days and it's an average of 4 days? No. If you check the box for 3 days, you're expecting to tell your client it's going to get there in 3 days. The way they developed their entire logistics system was through Lean Six Sigma, so that they have created processes that get you a delivery in the time you've been guaranteed. If the private sector can figure out how to get a box to China in exactly 3 days, at 99.9999999% of the time, then we should be able to figure out how to get benefit approvals for these service members who put their lives on the line in a timely manner. So what you just asked me about was the number one program I pointed out when I announced for Congress in terms of reinventing government, rethinking how we do business. Last comments or questions? Yeah.
I have a question. It's just mostly on, there's been a lot of gridlock in Washington. And, we saw the shutdown happen that has created more of a backlog with the VA. And I think it would be fair to say, I'm going to full disclosure, I'm a registered Democrat. It seems that the Republican Party has been kind of pushing to shut down the government, to stop Obamacare, to stop Obama from anything. You seem to be more middle of the road, as is our current Congressman, Scott Peters. What are you going to bring to Washington that will make it work again? What are you offering us that's different from what's currently there from your party?
Yeah. Well, I think that you're going to find that both parties share the responsibility for the gridlock. Both parties engage in name calling. Name calling doesn't solve problems. I'll let your comment about Scott Peters stand, and I think that record will be litigated. But you have to start by fixing Congress first. If you want to change the VA, if you want to balance the budget, if you want to fix these entitlement programs so they're sustainable, you have to get the broken Congress into an accountable and transparent operating condition. And that's why we've laid out the plan that's the closest to my heart starts first, is fix Congress first. And that's where I'm trying to take these members of Congress off their pedestal. You shouldn't be passing laws that you exempt yourself from. If you pass a law, it should apply to Congress, just like everyone else. The members of Congress get special health care benefits and pension benefits that none of us get. Can you imagine how interested they would be in fixing Social Security and Medicare if that's what they themselves received as their sole retirement and health care? You'd see a lot of motivation to start working together to get things done. How about no budget, no pay? We should never have had a shutdown. They should have done their budget on time, and there should have been consequence for failure. Right now, Mr. Peters says no budget, no pay, that he's done it. He's got it done. It was, he ran on it. He said he was going to get it done. He even says today, it's no longer an issue. I got it done. Actually, all the members of Congress cashed checks, received checks during the government shutdown. Some of them donated, which is, again, very admirable that individuals said, I'll donate. But they all got checks. What do you mean no budget, no pay? This is, again, an example of Washington politicians saying one thing that's not true. No budget, no pay means you don't pass a budget on time, you don't get paid. And it doesn't get given back to you after you do your job. You didn't do your job on time, and so we're docking the pay. So what we've proposed is, for this Congress, if you shut down the government, you don't get the 13 appropriation bills done by September 30th, you forfeit the pay for every single day that passes. Do you realize how quickly those people would come to an agreement? Probably in like 4 or 5 hours. They'd get it done. Other elements, full disclosure. Congress has exempted itself from open government laws. So when I was a member of the city council, if people wanted to see my schedule, if they wanted to see my emails, if they wanted to see any memos or documentation I used to propose legislation, thank goodness under state law they have a right to demand copies of those records. Congress passed a similar law called Freedom of Information Act that all federal agencies have to comply with, except Congress. They don't have to be open in terms of transparency. Obamacare. Nancy Pelosi said, we don't need to read the bill to know what's in it. We'll pass it and then we'll figure it out. Fix Congress First requires that you read the bill first. Now, you can't force a congressman to actually open up the bill and start reading it. But one of the things we require is that in order to pass legislation, the legislation has to be posted online 72 hours in its full text. Any amendments that you're going to vote on shall also be posted 72 hours in advance. So if you're not going to read the bill, at least give us the opportunity to read the bill, to tell you what's in the bill, and tell you our opinion of it before you vote on it. And then finally, single subject. You get all these deals where in the legislation they add sweeteners. That's how that wind tax credit got added in. I'm sure it's probably how the movie theaters or the movie producers got their tax credit. Single subject says you shall vote on a single subject for each piece of legislation. No more attaching earmarks, no more attaching special provisions to add on to a bill. And you'd find that the horse trading would end. You'd find that the backroom deals would be a lot harder to make because you actually have to have a vote on each and every subject. Legislation can no longer be special interest set-asides. And I think if you start doing that, you're gonna make a huge change in the culture. I can tell you right now, both Democrats and Republicans, members of Congress, hate this plan. They hate it. I've met with Democrats and Republicans who say, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You know, it's just not the way things are done around here. Well, you know what? Things are really screwed up, so I'd like to change the way things are done around here. Because you're not getting really good results right now. And unfortunately, Mr. Peters has been part of that go along to get along. I'm not going along to get along. I'm going back there to change that system because it's broken. And I'm going to work with Democrats and Republicans to get it done. Yeah.
So if you get elected,
When?
if you get elected,
When?
when,
Okay, there you go.
when you get elected, you're not going to support me, right, for speakership?
I have no idea who's going to run for speaker.
Well,
I've heard a lot of different comments about, maybe it could be a number of folks that decide to throw their hat in the ring. I think that we need to change how the leadership operates. When I was on city council, I was on the losing end of a 2-6 minority, yet we still got things done. And one of the reforms that I proposed was that anyone should be able to offer legislation and ask for a vote. Offer legislation, get a debate, and ask for a vote. And they said no. The Democrat chair, Ben Waso, said no, we're not going to do it that way. It wasn't until Tony Young, also a Democrat, who's a true gentleman, became council president in the middle of my term. And he said, Carl, I may or may not agree with some of your ideas, but I'm going to defend your right to offer those ideas and to get a vote. And when we started actually getting an opportunity to vote, we got Democrats